It's week 16, and the Giants head to Philadelphia for the first of two games against the Eagles in 3 weeks. I want to welcome you guys to the Blue Rush Preview Show. It's our Giants show and podcast for the New York Post and SNY. It's just me and longtime Giants beat writer Paul Schwartz manning the fort today. Lawrence Tynes is out this week. We'll also have Jeff Kerr jump on the show later. Jeff covers the Eagles and the NFL for CBS Sports out in Philadelphia. Let's get Paul on the toolbox. Paul, happy holidays, my man. The Giants got a great chance to head down I-95 and play Scrooge and hand the Eagles their fourth L in a row. But as we both know and as history has shown, that ain't going to be easy.
Hey, Brandon, 10 straight, right?
Oh.
10 straight losses in the link, 2 last year. The last time the Giants won in Philly, Justin Pugh was a rookie. 2013, okay, was a rookie. I think they won 15-7. I think the Giants kicked 5 field goals. And you know who came in and played quarterback for the Eagles in that game?
Cobb. Kevin Cobb?
He's on the Giants now. Matt Barkley came in.
Wow.
I think Vic was there, or whoever got hurt. Matt Barkley came in and played quarterback at the end of that game for the Eagles. This is a long time ago. A lot of bad losses, some close, some not close. You know, last year the Eagles became the first team in history to beat the Giants 3 times in one season. So. Christmas, humbug. It's this is the worst place for the Giants to play. There's no question about it. The closest road game, but in many ways the most difficult road game.
Yeah, when you say the worst place for them to go, especially coming off that loss down in the Big Easy to New Orleans, I think if they would have won that game, they would have had some momentum going in this game. And I think a lot of Giants fans would be driving down 95 or hopping on that Amtrak with their chest poked out, thinking that, hey, there was 4 in a row for the Giants. Eagles lose 3 in a row at that point. The Giants could, again, go down there and play Scrooge. Lots of storylines heading into this game today, but you've got a pretty cool article, and it hits a lot of us. You know, a lot of people who've been covering this team, a lot of fans who've been ride or die with this team since 2016. I know Big Blue a lot of people going for a long time, but this player has been here since 2016. That's my first year doing Giants TV, all that good stuff. Sterling Shepard, it looks like he could be playing or suiting up for his last 3 games as a New York Giant, and you got a chance to talk to Shep in the locker room, man. What was his demeanor like? It was a head high when he was talking to you, with heavy heart. Kind of give us the details on that conversation, Paul.
Yeah, I wanted to check in with Sterling. You know, he's been, I've covered him his whole career. He's always been a class act. It's tough for him, you know. I mean, he's 30 years old, so he's not an old man. On one hand, he said, I'm blessed. I've spent 8 years with one franchise. You know, not many people can say they can do that. He certainly has some success in the league. He loves the Giants. And on the other hand, he's frustrated because he hasn't played that much. You know, he's had a couple of games where he has been healthy and hasn't played at all. He's had a couple of games where he's been healthy and played 1 snap. Last week, I think he played 3 snaps. He's got, 7 catches this season. So he feels he can do more. He feels he's not finished. Clearly, they've gone in a different direction with Wan'Dale Robinson and obviously Jalen Hyatt. Right. You know, I mean, Paris Campbell is a veteran who is not really playing. Sterling Shepard's a veteran who's not really playing. But, you know, Paris Campbell just got here. He doesn't really have equity with the Giants. Sterling does. And he admitted, I don't know what to feel. I'm frustrated that I'm not playing. I am looking at, look, he doesn't, I asked him, would you want to go somewhere else? He knows it's over with the Giants. He knows, look, and he said, look, they didn't have to re-sign me last year. I was coming off an ACL. They gave me $1.3 million. They re-signed me. And he said, I don't know what, he realizes I know they re-signed me because I have a great attitude and because I was great with the team last year when we made the playoffs, and I was very upbeat, and they liked that. And they probably thought I could play a little bit. He came back. He made it back for training camp. He looked pretty good, and then just didn't work for him. Let's face it, Brandon, the whole passing offense has not been good. Yeah. So it's not just Sterling Shepard. But, he's looking at the end of his Giants career. He's certainly looking at the end of his NFL career. I asked him, would you want to just go look for another team? he didn't really say yes to that. So, this is something. Now, this is a little dramatic, Justin, but this is something that the great Roger Kahn wrote in the book, The Boys of Summer, the great book about the Brooklyn Dodgers. Okay, you tell me if this resonates with you. Okay, an athlete dies twice. Unlike most, a ball player must confront two deaths. First, between the ages of 30 and 40, he perishes as an athlete. And he goes on to there. It's dramatic, right? Did you feel that at some point, when you were either told or you realized, no one's going to pay you to play football anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. Once I hit 30, Paul, I felt like my body wasn't the same. I felt like I wasn't recovering the same. I didn't feel like I had the same step. And at that time, I was up in Canada. And, I retired on voluntarily to get into TV in the middle of training camp. But the year prior, Deron Carter, who's Chris Carter's son, kind of came up there and stole my juice. Took my spot, he was making plays, and I just wasn't the same guy. And the Montreal Alouettes kept me on for that same reason, where I was an upbeat guy. I was a rah-rah guy. Obviously, I could probably coach there if I, got in contact with them. But they looked at me as someone that was like, hey, here's a staple within this franchise for the last 3-4 years. He's good at mentoring the younger guys. He shows up. He's a pro and all, but he ain't doing the same thing as he used to do when my nickname was Wavy. And he's not doing the same thing that Deron Carter is doing. So I was making good money up there as a receiver. But at the end of the day, when it comes to that money and it comes to, hey, I got a younger guy that can do exactly what you can do plus some for cheaper, then you know that the writing's on the wall. And I believe that Wan'Dale Robinson was his Deron Carter. For me. And Sterling Shepard looked good in training camp. Sterling Shepard was making plays throughout training camp. But when you got those young guys and you got a new regime, a new administration, and these are guys that we handpicked, we selected, and you're losing at the same time, what did Dable say? We got to get these young guys some reps.
And Sterling, he said, he's funny. He said, I've lived in two places in my life, Oklahoma and Jersey, two places in my whole life. And he said, I ain't going back to Oklahoma anytime soon. That's what he said. So he's going to stay around. He's got a blended new family that he's coming, incorporating into his life. He said, you better watch out. He said, I may want to look into the media. He might be coming for you like Carter did those years ago. Look, he's got some real estate property in Oklahoma. Yeah. He mentioned coaching, which I think is more of a back burner thing. So, he's thinking about it. And the main thing was that I wanted to, convey to him and see what he was thinking is, are you able to enjoy this? You know what I mean? Because if you're going to go out bitter and you're going to be upset, and he said, I'm trying to enjoy, he said, look, I understand what I have here in this locker room. You can never get back. No. You can't get it back. It's not the same, right? And so he said, I'm trying to extract as much joy out of this in the last 3 games, whether I play or not. And kind of. And right when I was talking to him, Isaiah Simmons comes over to him, and he's holding this big boom box with his Sterling, and he's telling him, man, why don't you have batteries? Why is everyone taking this? There's no batteries in it. And it was just funny interplay. Yeah. And it's just, he's not going to get that back. You know what? I asked Jalen Hyatt, as you know, in that locker room, Hyatt's locker was right there, right? You have Daniel Jones, Jalen Hyatt, Sterling Shepard. It is no accident that they put, Hyatt there. They wanted him to kind of learn from two. And Hyatt told me, and we'll get into this with Hyatt, who had 3 targets last game at New Orleans and had no catches. He was down after the game. I saw him at his locker. He was down. He knew he didn't do his job. And he said, Sterling and I went into the fill room alone. And Sterling wanted to point out everything I did wrong and pick me up and show me everything. And he said, man, that guy is 6th on the all-time, franchise career reception list here. And he said, I value that he's here, man. He helped me, and so that's why Sterling's around. That's why people like him so much. Is that, he doesn't have to do that down the stretch of the season. He doesn't have to do that. He could give him advice, but he said he sat in that room with him in that dark room, and they went over every snap he took. That's Sterling. He's called the longest tenured Giant. That's what we call him now, right? And there is some there's respect attached to that. Look, if I told every player you're going to be drafted in the second round, you're going to play 8 years here, you're never going to leave, you're going to make $30-something million in your 8 years, and you're never going to have to play for somewhere else. It may not end great. He's trying to look at the positives here, and there certainly are a lot of positives.
Yeah, an athlete dies a gladiator's death. I feel like it's coming. Either they're going to push you out, or you got to voluntarily say, "Hey, I can't do it anymore." But I think I'm glad you talked about Jalen Hyatt, because we're going to segue into him. But that right there, Paul, was the passing of the torch. That was the official passing of the torch. He knows the writing's on the wall for his career here. He knows this is a young guy he has to get ready, who he's seen some great things in, talking about Jalen Hyatt, and who has a future here with the New York Giants. 369 career catches, 477 yards, 23 touchdowns as a New York Giants. Sterling Shepard, we salute you. We hope you ride off in the sunset these next 3 games. Catch the touchdown. But let's go to Jalen Hyatt and these young guys, because you said last game, Paul, as a receiver, it's one of those games where you really feel like you did nothing. You were nothing. And as for Jalen Hyatt, what we say when we go look at the film, is never as good, is never as bad. You had 9 catches, 1 drop, you're upset with that drop. You could have, no catches, but you still were open, and you can be like, oh, well, it wasn't bad. But at the time when you're feeling it in the game, you're giving 0 production, you're feeling it. And this offense, what they shown yesterday, because not yesterday, against New Orleans, they took a step back. And as a young guy, I'm glad he wanted to get into the film room, because you're looking at it going into this week. The only way for the Giants to beat the Eagles, they got to throw at these guys. James Bradberry, Keely Ringo. I don't know the situation with Darius Slay, if he's going to play. James Bradberry is giving it up. And when you have a Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, that's how you're going to be able to move the ball. That's how you're going to be able to get chunk plays. So when it comes to Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tommy DeVito, it's a chance for them to have a bounce-back game, Paul. But how are they going to do that if they can't protect? We know Philly's defensive line is pretty solid.
They are. One more thing about Hyatt is, and you could speak to this, because what did we hear for him coming? Oh, he's a first round. He said, I felt like a first round talent. He dropped to the 3rd round. Why? Because he was like a one-trick pony, right? You can just go vertical. He's skinny. He doesn't do the stuff over the middle. Now, in the game, he said, I had 2 slants and 1 curl. He said on the 1 slant he was really upset with. He said, I made it a body catch. Mm-hmm. I made it a body catch. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he said, I got great hands. Why am I making it a body catch? He was down on himself. And I said, are you more down on yourself because that was the knock on you, right? The knock on you is you can't be physical inside on those slants. And he said, yeah. The one thing about him I like is he doesn't get defensive. He said, yeah, that's what they were talking about me. And he says, I got to do better. I got to do better. So that's, and is this the week to do better? But first, let me ask you, why would a guy do a body catch there? Is it lazy? Is it sloppy? Is it I don't want to extend myself, to get hit? I mean, he was covered, but he's a skinny guy. You've seen him. He's so skinny. He needs to bulk up a little bit. Why would a guy running a slant, which you did, body catch instead of catch it with his hands?
We're always going to say it's lazy. The ball should never touch your body. If your hands, because we call those guys, we'll point them out as a receiver. Oh, he's a body catcher. Oh, he's a body catcher. And you see that a lot when it comes to the speed guys, because why, Paul? They always have some sort of separation. They're always running by somebody, and it's just dropping into the breadbasket, and you've got 2-yard separation from somebody. Me, as a big body possession guy, there's always somebody on me. I'm 6'5". If I put my arms out to catch, you're not coming behind me and slapping my hands away. So I'm glad that he went in there with a Sterling Shepard, a route technician, a guy who works his technique, because I had an Amani Toomer my rookie year show the way. You never saw Amani Toomer really catch the ball with his body. Same thing, Plaxico Burress. So it was one of those things where you can get away with it from time to time, but at that moment, that great moment, that's where you have to apply even the smallest detail of technique, because that catch could have got him going. Instead, what did it do? It got you in the dump. So bad technique can get you in the dump. Great technique. You may not have scored a 70-yarder on that, but now you're like, okay, got me a little catch. Let me forget what happened before that. Let me move a little bit. All right, ball's coming again. You put together technique, and then comes the big play when it comes to that, Paul. So yeah, he was lazy on that one, and he'll be the first one to tell you.
Now, right, it's easy. You're a receiver. You always say we want to throw the ball. I don't think Tommy DeVito played a terrible game in New Orleans. He didn't. Everyone's saying, okay, this kid's riding high. He's going to come back to earth. No fumbles, no interceptions. A couple of throws he wants back. There's no question. You mentioned I think he was less aware in the pocket. That led to some sacks. Clearly, Justin Pugh had his worst game. He admitted it. He said, we gave up 7 sacks. I might have had a hand in 4 of them. He admitted it. I don't think the rookie John Michael Schmitz had his best game, but so can you protect? I agree you can attack the Eagles. But this 10-game losing streak and is you can put a lot of things on why the Giants struggle against the Eagles. I think the number one thing is their offensive line cannot handle the Eagles' defensive line. That is, there's a lot of other things they don't do well in this, but that is the key to all of it. They usually have a good defensive line, but the Eagles this year are not, their sack totals are not impressive. They have monsters, but they just haven't been dominating. They haven't been getting pressure. In Philly, if you ask them, they said, they have some bad third down defense. They don't get third down pass rush. So can the Giants come back in this game up front and give DeVito a chance? Can they block these guys? Carter, they lucked into, he dropped into their laps. He's different. He's like Dexter Lawrence different. You know what I mean? He's not Dexter Lawrence yet, but if he's not going to become a really good or great player, I think a lot of people are going to be shocked. Fletcher Cox can still do it. Sweat is there. Graham is there. They're good. They're really good. They're not good as their numbers would indicate this year, but are we bracing for a get well game for the Eagles? Right? A get well game where everything is just out there, and boy, that 3-game losing streak is over. You got to brace for that. I don't know. You mentioned about, the difference between last week and this week. I felt it in the locker room, Brandon. I felt it. They weren't like before the Saints game, the week before, they weren't like, we're making a playoffs. This is our playoff push, but they were feeling it. They'd won 3 in a row. They knew they had some sort of destiny in their hands if they could keep winning. Some sort. They weren't in good shape, but they felt like, you have a chance until you don't have a chance. And you could feel it this week. It was just a different atmosphere. Not that they don't think they can win or they're going to play hard, but they know that the season is ending in 3 games.
Well, defensively, we saw last week that the defense caused no turnovers. Didn't get the ball back for the offense. Jalen Hurts is kind of giving the ball up just a little bit. The Philly offense is not looking. So, and here's the frustrating part, Paul. It's like, you got the Eagles. You got a wounded eagle here, but you can't go there. You can't approach it with confidence to really step on its neck because of what was shown last week. Defensively, just was trending in the right direction, but couldn't take the ball away from Derek Carr. Again, when we talk about these get-right games, the Philly offense is looking at this game where it's like, hey, our offensive line can control this defensive line. Our receivers on the outside, you give us time, we can throw at these guys. We've got home run hitters on the outside, and you've got a dangerous tight end like Dallas Goedert. And then you got Swift, and then the giant killer himself, Boston Scott, who no one talks about until it's time to play the Giants. Paul, it's one of those things, you're either looking at a Giants win by a field goal or you're looking at a complete blowout, I feel like.
Well, one thing, Wink Martindale spoke with us this week, and one thing I was a little quizzical about with Wink, he said he was generally pleased with the performance against the Saints, mentioned some stats, less than 300 yards allowed and, some good things here and there. And then he said, what was the difference? He said, well, turnovers, we have to cause turnovers. And a really good, legitimate defense. Yes, you can, the best defense cause turnovers. I get it. But you can't count on going into a game and saying, if we don't get 2 or 3 turnovers, we can't win this game. That's not the way it works, right? It's not the way it works. You have to be a lockdown defense, even if you don't cause turnovers. Look, it helps. It certainly helps. Now, Let me give you four guys. Josh Dobbs, right? You know who Josh Dobbs is, right? Josh Allen, of course. Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts and Sam Howell. Four quarterbacks, right? What do they have in common, those four? They lead the league in turnovers.
Okay.
All four of them are tied with 17 turnovers. Okay. That's shocking, isn't it? You know, Hurts last year was a guy who never turned the ball over. You know, he is an interesting guy. He's definitely been banged up a little bit. You know, you can see when he runs. You know, he has 14 rushing touchdowns this year. No quarterback in NFL history has ever had 15. Yeah. Ever. I mean, so he is, you know, their offense is, you know, you mentioned Swift is a terrific running back, but they score because he scores touchdowns, you know. Obviously the tush push. I prefer the brotherly shove. You know, I like the brotherly shove better because anyone can call it the tush push, right? The brotherly shove is all Philly, right?
All Philly, yep.
And it's got the shove. Now, it was an interesting debate in the locker room. You know, Wink Martindale said it's a rugby play. You know, it's not a football play; it's a rugby play. And you know, obviously mentioned Kelsey and who's, you know, a Hall of Fame center, and that Hurts squats 600 pounds. You know. Yeah. You know, you watch Eli Manning for 16 years. He never ran a quarterback sneak. He didn't want it. He just didn't want to do it, and they didn't want to do it with him. So you have the great center and an incredibly strong quarterback. But, you know, Saquon Barkley was asked about it, and he said, you know, why should we outlaw this? You know, just because they do it better than everybody? So I asked Saquon, I said, how much do you squat? And he said, a heck of a lot more than Jalen does. Oof. So I said, so why don't you run? Why don't the Giants run a tush push with you, right? Because a lot of people say, well, why don't you do it with the quarterback? Because the quarterbacks don't want to do it. They can't do it. You know, they can't do it. You know, Jalen Hurts can do it. He looks like a fullback. So I said, why don't we do it with you? Saquon said, well, I have to learn how to take the snap and everything like that. And, you know, obviously they don't have Jason Kelsey. So, I mean, Wink said it is 1st and 9 when you play the Eagles. What an advantage, right? It's 1st and 9. They're converting 75% of their fourth downs. It is an incredible weapon. You can't get them off the field. It's an incredible weapon.
Yeah, and that's just one weapon on that offense. Devonta Smith on the outside. A.J. Brown is having himself a Pro Bowl caliber year. It's one of those things where you kind of, I don't want to say feel bad for the Giants defense, but they're going into this game with their hands tied, and they're going to need some sort of offensive help. Someone's going to have to put some sort of points up on the board when it comes to offense. But defensively, they're going to need every tip ball to fall their way, every fumble. If there is a ball on the ground, things are going to have to go their way. But at the end of the day, the way that Bobby Okereke and some of these guys have been playing, Xavier McKinney, you can't just write this Giants defense off against this Eagles offense. So it's going to be something very interesting.
In this losing streak, they've scored 19, 13, and 17. Okay? You know, now I get it. 49ers, Cowboys, Seattle. Okay? But right, I mean, if they're last year, the Eagles were 14-3 to end the season, right? Yep. Their point differential was plus 133. Yep. They are 10-4 this year, right? You know what their point differential is?
What's that?
Plus 18.
Wow.
With a 10-4 record. I mean, their games are close. You know, they're close. They win close. That was the thing about the Eagles when they were 10-1, right? They don't look right, but they always win, right? They always find a way to win, but they don't look right. They're not dominating. So then they lose 3 in a row to really good teams. You know, Seattle's a pretty good team. So, I mean, yes, this could be one of those games. But to think the way the Eagles are playing now, that the Giants are going to go in and lose 34-10, and it's going to be a blowout. I mean, that's a shame. I mean, that we shouldn't be thinking that way. It might happen. And I think I'm going to pick a game that, you know, the Eagles win and cover the 12-point spread. But, you know, darn it. I mean, the Giants have a decent defense. You know, they shouldn't go in there and lay down. They shouldn't go in there and lay down. This team is not scoring a lot of points, even though they're capable of it, you know. So, you know, it's you know, the Eagles defense is not locked down like it used to be. It just isn't. They don't get the pressure. They don't, you know, Slay is out. I mean, Bradbury's getting run by on that last play right now. Now that's a good young receiver, but he's playing off man coverage, right?
Yeah, I
Off
tweeted
man
it. That's a go route against off man is the most disrespectful route that you could call against off man and to
Now
connect on it.
he didn't have, you know, I mean, Bradbury's coverage wasn't terrible. It was a great throw, and it was a ridiculous catch. I mean, he caught the ball, you know, the back of the football. It was a great throw, great catch. But they asked Bradbury after the game, and he said he ran by me. He ran by me. Bradbury's a stand-up guy. He said he ran by me. That's exactly what happened. He's got an 8 or 10 yard cushion, and he's backpedaling. He's going forward, and he just ran by me. So, can Jalen Hyatt just run by him? I mean, why the heck not? You know what I mean? I mean, let's. If you're going to go down, giving them a battle, bloodying them. You know what I mean? It's going to be. What the atmosphere is going to be like. It's Christmas. It's really a night game. It's 4:30. It's going to be dark. It's Christmas. Everyone will be dressed up in Santa costumes. They're going to want to kill, Tommy DeVito. There's a lot of Italians in Philly, but they're not going to have any love for the, for Tommy Cutlets, right? Did you see he got trademark branding rights for 2 things: Tommy Cutlets and the passing paisan. I mean, smart kid,
because we don't know what his career is going to be like, so we don't know how much he can capitalize on that. His 15 minutes could end at the end of this year, Paul, but it's smart because you make sure no one else capitalizes on your name and your nickname.
They're going to be calling them. They're going to be yelling that stuff. It's hostile environment. The press box there. The fans, unlike MetLife Stadium with this, it's so high and the way it's configured, there's nobody there. We just have, open air. Yeah. But in Philly, the fans are right there.
Wow.
So, they can bang on the thing a little bit, and they turn around. They know where the New York, New Jersey Giants media is sitting. They yell, they turn around and do this to us and everything. And I'm protected by plexiglass. I'm protected by glass. You know what I mean? So it's a hostile environment, I mean, I like that Tommy DeVito does not seem, look, we'll see how he gets out there. He was asked about that this week, about hostile environments. And what'd he say? The Bosco, he said, have you ever been to the Bosco, what was it, Paramus game or something? Or he said, there's 15,000 there, and it's not good for you or your family. So, this is a little, this is that times 1,000. But look, I will be very disappointed if the Giants go in there and just lay an egg and just show no real competitive fire. That's you can't do that against a division opponent. You got to make them know they're in a battle here. Even if you can't, you're not good enough to beat them.
And still, it's still a primetime game because it's a Christmas game. To be the only game going on at that time. Got to go out there, like you said, be competitive. Got to put your best foot forward. It was cool as we were talking about James Bradbury and the Eagles' defense. I talked with Jeff Kerr about that, and also Matt Patricia calling the plays. Jeff Kerr, who is the NFL writer who covers the Eagles for CBS Philadelphia. I got a chance to sit down and talk with him on Know Your Enemy. You guys check this out. Can Big Blue go green and go full Grinch on the Eagles on Christmas Day? That's the question. Let's break this game down from the Philly side of things with NFL writer for CBS Sports, and he covers the Eagles for CBS Philadelphia, Jeff Kerr. Jeff, thanks for hopping on with this, my man. We should call the Eagles the Wounded Eagles because 3 straight losses for this team. Jalen Hurts took some heat for saying that his squad needs to be committed. Jason Kelce has come out and kind of cleared things up. I guess what I'm asking you is there a rift going on in that locker room right now?
I wouldn't say rift, Brandon, but I would say there's been some finger pointing. And this has been, even when the Eagles were starting 10-1, there's been communication issues on the back end of the defense. The young players are getting confused with the defense. The veterans didn't like, how confusing the defense was. Guys that were brought in, guys that have been with this team for a while. So this has been coming. But it was shocking to hear it from the offensive side of the ball with Jalen Hurts that the team wasn't committed. And I think that was a message to this football team saying, hey, we got 3 weeks to get this thing right. And as the leader, as the captain of this football team, I'm going to publicly call people out. And I like what Jason Kelce said. Hey, look, I'm not disagreeing with him, but we do have guys in this locker room that want to win. And I truly do believe that as well. I just think they got to handle a lot of internal things right now. And, it's guys getting their piece of the pie or guys getting the football. I think they got to kind of take a step back on that and go for the team aspect right now. The Eagles they're a close-knit team. They're a close-knit bunch, but they just haven't handled losing very well right now.
Well, it makes you think, like, how long things have been going on internally, because winning masks everything, and they had started off 10-1. Nothing's going to come out publicly. You saw some back and forth with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts on the sideline. But again, when you're winning games, no one's going to go digging. But you lose 3 straight, they've got some pressure on them. So I got to ask you, is this more of a get-right game for them, knowing that the Giants are kind of lesser in talent, or is this more of a must-win game for Philly?
Well, I thought Seattle was the get-right game, personally, but they also haven't beaten Seattle in 15 years, and they haven't won in Seattle in 15 years, so I knew that was going to be a tough game, and then you got the Jalen Hurts flu stuff, him taking a separate plane, you're like, okay, like, they still should be able to win the game, and they were winning the game until the very end, and, Matt Patricia was doing a solid job, and you saw the ending of that Seattle game. So maybe the Giants are the get-right game. They seem to be the get-right game for a lot of teams this year, and I just keep trying to tell people, if you want my honest opinion, it's the Giants. They should beat them, and they should beat them by 2 touchdowns. But I don't know if the Eagles can beat anybody right now. The Giants are still an NFL team. You have to go out there and play hard against them, or Tommy DeVito is going to cut this defense up. I don't care who's the quarterback. I don't care who's on the Giants' offensive line. You got to show up and play football. You got to play to your talent level. If the Eagles do that, then yes, it's a get-right game. But if not, Giants may pull off an upset here.
And that's crazy that you're having to say that about this team, the team that was just in the Super Bowl last season, the team that, again, started off 10-1. It's like this defense has shown its weakness, and teams are taking advantage of that. And you mentioned Tommy DeVito. DeVito madness is going south on 95 to go down there and try and light up the link and light up this defense. Any word on who's going to be calling plays for the defense this week? And if it is Matt Patricia, you think that the team and the fan base has confidence in Patricia?
So we had a running joke going into the week, and when we found out the whole Matt Patricia is calling the plays for the Seattle game, they never took away the defensive coordinator title from Sean Desai. So we called him the press secretary. He was going to answer all the questions while Patricia was going to do the dirty work. Well, no, Matt Patricia's actually speaking today at 12:30. So, or I guess technically it'd be Thursday, but yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, but Matt Patricia is speaking this week. And so I guess Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator for the time being, even though he doesn't actually have the title. So Matt Patricia will be the one calling plays for this football team, Brandon. So you will see a Matt Patricia defense. And again, I like some of the stuff he did against Seattle. It just, basically it's personnel related, right? Sean Desai was the scapegoat for bad personnel decisions by this front office. And James Bradberry, as you guys know very well, James Bradberry looks like the worst cornerback in football this year. He's given up 9 pass touchdowns. Opposing quarterbacks have a 90 passer rating. So if Tommy DeVito wants to have success, you go against James Bradberry and don't test the rookies, Kaylee Ringo and Eli Ricks.
Well, I was about to ask you about DeVito mania. I was going to say, do you think that he can have the same success against the Eagles defense that Drew Lock had? And you kind of just answered that question. So other than James Bradberry in the secondary, how else? Are there any other weaknesses in this Eagles defense?
For a team that's built to have a lead and get sacks, they don't do that often, at least not this year. Like, you're up 17-13. You weren't able to get a sack off Drew Lock and the Seahawks offensive line with 41-year-old Jason Pierce. I know Jason Pierce is future Hall of Famer, is having a solid year, but, Hassan Reddick can't make a play. Josh Sweat can't make a play there. So, but again, maybe the Giants' offensive line is the cure-all. As we've seen, Tommy DeVito has been sacked, 27 times in his 5 starts. I think that's the 5th most by any quarterback in his first 5 starts, which is kind of crazy to me. But, one of my biggest criticisms of the Giants this whole offseason and going into the year was, yeah, it's great. They did this, they did this, they did this, but their offensive line still is god-awful. And they have proven to be god-awful all season long. So the Eagles should be able to feast on this kid, but can they? That's the thing. If you can't get pressure off the Giants, I don't think you're going to win a playoff game. That's just my personal opinion. So, the Giants, it's a bad offense. Tommy DeVito has at least put some excitement into it, but at the end of the day, if you're just looking at the battle between the trenches, the Eagles should dominate.
Yeah, if you're looking at the trenches, you can see what the Saints defensive line did to the Giants offensive line. So if you're Fletcher Cox, you're Hassan Riddick, this is, I guess they're looking at this as a get-right game against this Giants offensive line. Last but not least, Jalen Hurts has taken heat. James Bradbury has taken heat. Let's talk about the head coach. Is there heat on Nick Sirianni to win this game?
You know, the sports talk radio stations may think so. I don't, you know, I don't think Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job, but he's definitely pulling out the defense card this week, you know, defending his offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, saying it's his offensive scheme. These are his guys. And look, Jeffrey Lurie, he does care about offense more than anything in the world. He's fired head coaches that don't have innovative offenses. And right now it's not looking like that, even though you have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, this offensive line, and they can't score 20 points in the football game. It's crazy. But no, I don't think Nick is coaching for his job yet. You know, maybe that's something to revisit after the season. Again, look, they have 3 chances to get this thing right. Christmas against the Giants. Then you play Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals. Then you get to play the Giants again. The Eagles have one of the easiest schedules, if not the easiest schedule, to close out the year. And they can still go 13-4, which is one heck of a season. So, in a way, yes, Nick kind of has to stop the fire. But I don't think his job is on the line by any means. I don't think he's coaching for his job. But you have to wonder, you know, the way this team has fallen since the 10-1 start, if the pressure is cooking for Nick.
Yeah, and you could call it the city of brotherly love all you want, but when you're losing games, you're going to get some hate. Jeff, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find all my work at cbssports.com. You can find me every Sunday if you really want to watch CBS Sports Philadelphia. You know, I know this is a New York station here, but you can find me on Sunday kickoff. I'll talk about the game, and I'll have plenty of coverage from the Eagles and Giants on Monday from both angles. Because let's be honest, Brandon, the Giants, they've at least put some excitement into a lost season over the last couple of weeks.
Hey, thanks, Jeff, for hopping on. I know we call that segment Know Your Enemy, but they are showing love down in the city of brotherly love. Appreciate them hopping on. All right, Paul, it's that time. Let's get into these player prop bets and the predictions. We'll start with Jalen Hurts passing yards, 230.5. I'll let you start, sir. Over, under.
All right. Their passing offense is right in the middle, 16th in the league. You know, they're not, you know, as you said, they have 2 great receivers. You know, you said Brown is having a Pro Bowl caliber season. Get rid of caliber. You know what I mean? He's beastie. He's terrific. 230.5. I'm going to say under. I just think they're going to run the ball a little better. It's hard. It's hard to figure with this. You know, the Giants got no pressure last week. That's another thing I didn't like what Wink said in his press conference about getting no pressure on the Saints. He said, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but they were getting rid of the ball in 2-point-something seconds, whatever. You're right. I don't want to hear it. You know, I mean, get pressure any way you can. You got to get pressure. It's a good offensive line with Philly. I get it, but I'm going to say under because I think you know, Hurts runs a lot too.
Yeah, I'm going to go over on this one, but only by like 5 yards. I think he gets that 235 around that area because, like you said, they run the ball. And I think it's not supposed to rain on that day, but on Christmas Day at the Link, three losses in a row, I think they're going to try and play some physical football against the Giants to run that clock and get up out of there. Jalen Hurts, 40.5 rushing yards, over, under.
It's a rough number. I'm going to say over. You know, I mean, he seems to get a, 12, 14, 15-yard run. You know, if you play man and run down a field and you got to stick with those guys, there's openings. You know, he can, he hasn't looked right. You know, he said he's got knee issues. He doesn't look explosive when he runs. But he's, obviously in short yardage, he's terrific. Around the goal line, he's almost unstoppable. And he runs out of bounds. He doesn't play hero ball too often. So I'm going to say over.
I'm going to go over with you on that one, Paul. Like you said, the knee looks like it's hurt. But at the same time, he's doing a great job. He gets out of the pocket and he'll still get you 6 to 12. So he'll do that 3 or 4 times, and that's almost 40.5 right there. And not to mention the QB design runs. Yeah, over 40 for sure, over 40.5 for sure. Let's talk about that bad man, A.J. Brown, 74.5 receiving yards, over, under, Paul.
I'm going to say over. He's got over 1,300 yards this season. He's got 3 games left. I don't know. I mean, he's a physical guy. He can run. Does he match up best with Deonte Banks? I guess, right, because of his size. I talked to Banks a little bit about it in the locker room the other day. He doesn't really want to break down these guys individually. He says, every week it's somebody. Every week it's somebody different. Every week it's an A+ guy. Banks has played a lot of snaps this year. He's a rookie. He says he's not wearing down. I'm not sure if that's the case. I don't think he or Adoree Jackson played great, certainly in New Orleans. So I think A.J. Brown can get 75 receiving yards in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well on this one. I mean, the guy, he gets yacked. He's physical. They've mastered the back shoulder. He's just, like you said, I'm taking the caliber out of it. He's having a Pro Bowl year. Devontae Smith, 52.5 receiving yards, over under.
Well, if he gets that, he goes over 1,000 yards for the season. He's at 957, and to have 2 guys with 1,000 yards, is rare. That's rare. That you got a 1 and 1A, and usually one guy doesn't both get 1,000. So that's good for them if they get it. I'm going to say under. I don't really. He's got 6 touchdowns. At the tight end, they'll probably do some damage because they usually do against the Giants. So I'm going to say under, not with a lot of real conviction here. He's terrific. I think maybe Adoree Jackson can do a little better. Adoree's smaller and quicker. Maybe he can hang with him a little bit. So I'll say under.
Yeah, I'm going to go over on this one. This kid, his speed, not only is it his speed, but it's the way he tracks the ball. Like, I love the way he tracks it, keeps his eye on it. And he's a small, kind of frail guy, but he high points it. He plays a lot bigger than what he does. I would love to see him in a Giants uniform sometime soon in his prime. But, it is Christmas, wishful thinking. Let's flip this thing over, go with the Giants. Finding some prop bets for this one. It's obviously I think it's kind of disrespectful to the passing game, so I wanted to throw these out there to get your take on it. Darius Slayton, 27.5 receiving yards, Paul. 27.5. Over, under.
Slayton is trending down. He's just trending down. You know what I mean? I mean, he's they're trying to get Wan'Dale the ball. I get it. But Slayton's getting his reps. He's getting his snaps out there on offense. I think you can make, as you said, I think you can make some plays on the Eagles down the field. I do. So I think 27.5 is a very low number, as you said. He could get that on one catch. And I think he might. I think he will get that on one catch. I'm not saying they're going to throw for, 300 yards, but I think he will have, he could get a catch of 20, 25, 26, 28 yards. So I'm going to say over. I mean, really, shame on the Giants if they can't get over here. Slayton's a pretty good player, and, the cornerbacks are not great. You mentioned Ringo, the rookie, who hasn't played much from Georgia. He's been forced to play now. I don't think they want any part of Ringo on Slayton because Slayton will run by him.
I'm still going under on this one, Paul. I think that hey, watching the Giants' offense in the pass game against the Saints last game was very frustrating as a receiver. I know Tommy DeVito he didn't have a terrible game, but those deep balls that they didn't connect with, thrown out of bounds, Darius Slayton had to come back to the ball. It just wasn't there. And it's this offense, when it's clicking, it's clicking. But when it's trash, it's absolutely trash. I got to go Darius Slayton under on this one because he has become an afterthought in this offense, and it's not his fault. It's just Tommy DeVito is a lot more comfortable with some of these younger guys. That's why I got Wan'Dale Robinson, 30.5 receiving yards. And people, I'm not setting these. These are out there. This is public information on Google, all these betting sites that I had to scour to find these. So Wan'Dale Robinson, 30.5 receiving yards, Paul.
He's averaging 8 yards a catch, right? And don't we want more from that from Wan'Dale?
Absolutely.
I get it. He was the first part of the season. He's still coming back. We've seen more. Nobody rises when the whole operation is rough. Every sack you take means the ball has not been thrown, right? And they're at what? They're at how many? Let me get it right here. The Giants are at 69 sacks this year. Okay, so that's 69 pass, pass attempts that have not happened that could be reception. So I get it, but I'm going to say over. Okay, I'm going to say over because I just think it's a ridiculously low number, and I'm going to say over. And a lot of those jet sweep things, which is a pass,
Yeah,
right?
it's a pass, yeah.
It's a you would have loved. They didn't run as many jet sweeps when you were playing, right? How much you would have liked that? Get a little flip of the ball and run 15 yards, and it's a reception, right? That's pretty good. It's better,
but I would have had like -1 yards. I wasn't a yak guy. I wasn't a catch and jet sweep guy. I block on the outside for somebody though.
That's right. You were too big to be going to good. You couldn't hide from anybody. Right? You couldn't hide from anybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to say over. I'm going to say over.
Yeah, I'll go over as well, just because that is Tommy DeVito's comfort guy. It's his comfort food. You know, when you're sitting there on the couch, you want some marshmallows. That's Wan'Dale Robinson to Tommy DeVito. So I'll go over on this one, on Wan'Dale. This one I find highly disrespectful, and we talked about this young man earlier in the show. Jalen Hyatt, 17.5 receiving yards. This is out there, Paul. This is what the bookies or Vegas or these people think about this passing game and these receivers. Jalen Hyatt, 17.5 receiving yards over under.
Well, that's 17.5 more than he had last week, right? So, it's not like, here's why I will say over, okay? Because if you add 27.5, which was Slayton's number, Wan'Dale's 30.5, and Hyatt's 17.5, what do you have? 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. You have less than 80 yards, okay? Oof. Okay, so now those are the three main targets, right? Those are the three main guys. It's not going to be Paris Campbell. It's not going to be Sterling Shepard. Like you said, it'll be a little bit of Waller, maybe a little more of Waller, maybe a little bit of Bellinger, maybe a little bit of Saquon. So you tell me the top three receivers can't get 80, hopefully they're not going to have 100 passing yards in a game. Hopefully they'll have more than that. And if they're losing, they may even get more yards, garbage time yards, that kind of thing. So I will say over. And, people say, well, you're crazy. You gave over to Slayton, Wan'Dale, and Hyatt, but the numbers are so low. I'm saying, even if they all go over by a little bit, you have less than 100 receiving yards and you've had a lousy day.
Yeah, it could be one of those days, Paul. Even if the Giants do fall behind and then they have to throw, you usually look at that like, stat pattern, give me an extra 4 or 5 catches. But with the way that this Philadelphia defense and defensive line is still set up, like we said, I know they haven't been as good as they were last season, but the way that they still have been dominant against the Giants offensive line, it could still be guys out there running cardio routes, just out there running, and DeVito running around like trying to save his life, back there. So, and this is no knock against the Giants or anything. We just see how these games can go. That's just how it is when it comes to a team that's struggling playing against a team that's just physically better and just more talented. Last but not least, I saw this one and I was like, question mark emoji. Total points, 53.5.
What are they expecting, the Eagles to get 40? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, what are the Giants averaging per game? Yeah, I mean, I'm not a math major, but let's say the Giants get 17. That means the Eagles, you have to put them in for 37 if you want to go over, right? 37-17. That's a high number. Like I said, shame on the Giants if they can't do something to slow the Eagles somewhat. They're not running up and down the field on everybody. It's one thing if you say when they were playing the Dolphins, when they were, oh, geez, this is a juggernaut. You can't stop them. I mean, the Eagles are not doing that to everybody. They're winning a lot of games. They've lost 3 in a row. I understand the Giants are not the Cowboys and the 49ers on defense, but they're not scoring in bulk. If they do, shame on you. So I'm going to say under here. Now, a lot of that is also because do I think the Giants can get to 17? Maybe. Can they get to 20? Maybe, depending on how the game goes, if it's too open. Look, that 38-3 is not far from my thoughts from the playoffs last year. Now, the Eagles were on a different kind of roll then, but like I said, I just think the Giants got to man up a little bit here and play a good game. And if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. You know what I mean? I'm not saying if they don't win, then it's everyone's got to be damned to hell. If you're not good enough, you're not good enough. They're not good enough to beat the Eagles, I would imagine. But they should be good enough against an Eagles team that's just not playing on all cylinders to compete and stay in the game somewhat.
Yeah, I'll take under on this one. I think they just want to get the win be impressive with the win, show some sort of dominance, put that back out there, put their physicality back out there, play some strong defense on the back end. Hopefully for them, thinking the way for them, Matt Patricia, they want him to call a good game, get guys settled in with his calls, because it looks like he's going to be the DC going forward. I go under on this one, 53.5. But you just want the Giants to be competitive in this game. You want them to win, but you want to be realistic. Go down there, be competitive. Paul, were you a kicker back in the day?
Was I a kicker? I was not a lot of things. Okay, I would say I used to be able to. We used to play street ball, and I would punt it sometimes. I could definitely get the ball up in the air, and I could probably get it around 15 yards. So no, I was not a punter, no, but I was compared to other things in football. Punter might have been a better specialty for me.
Paul, punt net yards over under 15.5. Well, kick us home on this. Kick us home on this one before I close this out. Final thoughts, Paul.
I am not trademarking the Paul's punting paisan. I'm not trademarking that. Okay. Anyway, that's open. That's open domain for anybody. Here's what I would say: is that look, the Giants have the Eagles, the Rams. Now, how good did the Rams look Thursday night?
Really
right?
Good.
The Rams look like a legitimate playoff team. And then the Eagles again. We thought the Eagles might not need anything to play for that Week 18. They probably will need that game for some sort of playoff positioning. The Eagles have the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Giants. The Eagles have to look at this and say, we have pretty much, we'll lock up the division, and if we need help, we can get the 1 seed. Probably not, because they've lost to the 49ers. But for this game in particular. Like I said, it's Christmas. You don't want everyone to be down, and you have to work on Christmas anyway for the players. They know the drill. That's what football players do, sometimes. But they have to play a good game. They have to. They can't just go quietly into the night here and lose to the Saints, and lose to the Eagles, and lose to the Rams, and lose to the Eagles again, and go out, with a 5-win team season. Now I don't know if they can beat any of these teams, but they have to play good football. And if they lose, they lose. I think that's very important.
Good football, and if they lose, they lose. Spoken like a true gent. Yeah, but you're right. You're right. There's no more expectations, no more hype. Just close this thing out on the right foot. We'll talk to you in the off season, and you figure things out from there. Start over. Hit the reset button. Everybody starts their journey to the Super Bowl all over again in the off season. But you're right. That 3 in a row, if they don't win 1, 2 of these next 3, then all the DeVito madness, all that 3-game hype just gets thrown out of the window, and people are back down in the dumps. But we don't want you guys down in the dumps. It's the holidays, y'all, and we want to thank you guys for watching another episode of Blue Rush. Just 2 more preview shows left to close out the year. Where's the time gone? Thanks for checking us out, and we appreciate all the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the New York Post Sports YouTube page and SNY to stay up to date with all things Blue Rush, and of course your Giants news. For Paul Schwartz, Brendan London, and the entire Blue Rush crew, happy holidays, everybody, and as always, thanks for watching.